I call over the special meeting for the Sierra Vista City Council for 26 June 2020. And first item is a roll call. Madam Clerk.
Mayor Rick Mueller.
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem Rachel Gray.
Present.
Councilmember William Benning.
Present.
Councilmember Gwen Calhoun.
Present.
Councilmember Sarah Pacheco. Councilmember Carolyn Humphrey.
Present.
Councilmember Christine Wolf.
Present.
Mr. Mayor, you have a quorum.
And hopefully Mrs. Pacheco will be here shortly. Item number 1, Mrs. Calhoun.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move that the agenda for the special city council meeting of June 26, 2020 be approved as written.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion or comments? Seeing none, I'll call for the question. All those in favor? Opposed? It's unanimous. Thank you very much. We now go on to item number 2, Mayor, excuse me, Mayor Pro Tem Gray.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move that Resolution 2020-040, authorization for the mayor to declare a local emergency pursuant to Arizona Revised Statute 26-311A and to issue an emergency order be approved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Mr. Petichik, may I have a staff report, please?
Thank you, Mayor Miller, members of the council. Since Governor Ducey declared a statewide emergency and issued a stay home, stay healthy, stay connected order, which was on March 30th of this year regarding the coronavirus pandemic, the city has been operating under Governor Ducey's executive orders requiring social distancing, and measures such as that, and have been doing that pretty faithfully throughout the pandemic. On June 17th, Governor Ducey issued Executive Order 2020-40 containing the spread of COVID-19 and continuing Arizona mitigation efforts, in which he authorized then counties, cities, and towns to adopt policies with regards to face mask coverings for the public. And the reason for that obviously is to mitigate the spread of COVID-19. This was the first time that the governor deviated from a one-size-fits-all approach with regards to dealing with the virus across the state and giving local governments the option to do that. Well, as I mentioned Tuesday in our work session, we do have some work regarding cleaning up some of our emergency operations language in the city code. But for now, Arizona Revised Statutes provides that a mayor of a city or a town may, with the vote of the city council, then deem that an emergency condition exists within that city or town. So this resolution then would allow that to occur for the period of the COVID-19 crisis until such time as the mayor or as the governor then declares the emergency over at that point. So what this resolution does tonight is authorize the mayor to be able to declare a local emergency here in Sierra Vista with the vote of the council, and then the mayor can then address the emergency how he sees fit with proclamations or executive orders as he deems appropriate. So the emergency clause allows then the mayor to move immediately after the vote today to issue any orders or proclamations that he deems necessary. And that's all I have to do.
Thank you, Mr. Petichik. Any questions for Ms. Petichik on his statement? We do have one person that would like to address us tonight. Mr. Griggan, I think you've been here before, if I remember right. You have 5 minutes. You can come up and address us at the podium, please, sir. And while he's doing that, I forgot to apologize to the community. As we were prepping for this event tonight, our off and on public system for broadcasting went off. And it's been in the budget. It's actually funded in the budget for replacement. And they picked today to go out, and we were doing through a number of different means, to include Cool FM is here recording for us, and we appreciate that. So we can get the word out. And I apologize for having our normal video system being broken, Mr. Griggan.
Thank you, sir.
5 minutes.
Yes, thank you. I'm not concerned about the video. I understand this resolution is to grant you the power as a mayor and emergency services to be able to issue proclamations and executive orders for the entire city. My concern is that what I'm understanding, and I could be wrong, is that the issue that's at hand here is mandatory use of masks for all in public. And I realize this may be a little out of character, and if it is, then please tell me, but that's my concern, is that we will have that pass. And the reason I'm concerned for that is basically three things. Number one is I think the United States is still a free country, and I just think that people have the right of choice. I choose not to wear a mask, you choose to wear a mask. That's the choice we get to make. And I think it should be done that way. Second thing is determination. The governor has determined that wearing masks is a good idea. He has yet to tell me that I've been reading where or how he determined that. So that's a question I have. I work in the construction field. I wear masks every day. And to wear a mask is difficult. It's hard on your lungs. It can cause hypoxia. There are lots of things that people do not understand about masks, especially in today's heat, as being June. And I would be very concerned from a public standpoint if I was required to wear a mask, and especially if somebody has any underlying health conditions that may actually exacerbate that. Hypoxia is the one that's a very big concern to us in my industry. Thirdly, or fourthly, and two other items very quickly is that even the Center for Disease Control has not determined that wearing a mask is the greatest thing in the world or the greatest thing not in the world. They don't have enough information in their own database, from what I'm understanding, that they actually know how the mask affects the transmission of disease or not. And thirdly, the New England Journal of Medicine has published about 3 weeks ago a statement that said, it was an 11-page report, masks work in one environment only, and that's in a hospital situation. In public, it's simply a symbolic statement. And having said that, I'm encouraging you, I can understand the passing of it, that's something that probably should be done, house cleaning aspect of it. I'm encouraging you as a mayor to think very carefully about people's personal choice before you declare us to have everybody wear a mask in public. And also take into consideration any other decrees or public executive orders that you have that require a one-size-fits-all. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Regan. Appreciate your comments. Okay, we'll now move on to a statement by me, and then we'll open up for the council for discussion. Chuck, I don't have a paper for you, sir.
I didn't understand what the emergency was for, sir.
Well, it's not emergency. It's a special meeting.
Can I give it to you right afterwards?
Well, sure
Okay,
can.
so it's on the boat back.
Well, you know the routine.
Yes, sir. Michael DeCarlo, North Catalina Drive. I stand here tonight because we live in a country where the American people are supposed to hold their government accountable. In order for us to be able to hold you accountable, Mr. Mayor, and these powers that are delegated to you from the state, we have to understand which enumerated ones they are. Which ones have we delegated to you? Telling folks that they have to wear a mask. Sir, I used to do missions in the Navy where I loaded food that was rejected by the Army and by the Air Force and by the California penal system. If you're gonna tell me to wear a mask, anybody in government's gonna tell me to wear a mask? I asked you Google ship's control panel on a submarine. I've already been there and I've already done it. You take away people's ability to communicate with each other, with their facial expressions. During this close down here, sir, the state closed churches and taverns. Our country was founded on gatherings in churches and taverns. The only altar that was open was the state. Please tread lightly, Mr. Mayor. This is, you're taking steps that are undefined. And when governments take undefined steps, it creates situations where alternate points of view suddenly make sense, which you have really dismissed most of your life. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council, folks that are here, appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. DeCarlo. I want to thank both Mr. Grigg and Mr. DeCarlo for making some very poignant comments. And I will assure both of you that I have thought about these as well in my deliberation. This is not something that's been hasty. I think my council members, when you talk to them, will attest to that, to say the least. So I'm going to start with a statement, then I'm going to open it up. Council, I want to thank you for considering my request for this authority. First, I want to thank the good people of Sierra Vista and the greater Sierra Vista community for doing those things that we're required to do to help stop the spread of COVID-19. And those are, of course, and they complement each other. I'm mentioning these 4 things that you've heard before. They complement each other, and they are effective in slowing the growth. It doesn't, obviously, the only thing that's going to kill the virus is a vaccine, which hasn't yet to be developed. So we're in a limbo zone right now, in my opinion. But obviously, wash and dry your hands properly and regularly. Stay at home to the maximum extent possible. Maintain social distancing, and wear masks where social distancing cannot be maintained. While our citizens have been admirable in these efforts, COVID is persisting. Our hospital is a regional hospital, and despite how well we do in our local zip codes, which we monitor on a regular basis, our hospital rightly is responsible for health care across the entire region, which is the entire, in this case, Cochise County and beyond. If you saw the charts on the statewide hospital capacity during the governor's briefing yesterday, you notice they've continued to shrink. The capacity has continued to shrink. While hospitals in our county still have capacity, they are appropriately planning for the worst case. I learned yesterday from Canyon Vista Medical Center, they were concerned enough about the shrinking capacity that they have started training for, and this is not their capacity, but it's capacity in the state as well. They started to conduct training for their ethics board. Now what the heck is a hospital ethics board? In this case, the ethics board is a committee of medical and hospital staff who have the tough mission of evaluating which patients would receive services care when it may not be available, services and care which may not be available, or so which one will and will not receive care when services are not available and there's a shortage of care. And that includes rooms, equipment, incubators, etc. While I'll stress again, we are not in that situation yet, we're a heck of a lot closer than we were recently. The fact that the hospital has to train this committee to be prepared to act in a legal and responsible manner gives me pause, as it should us all. Based on this information and the continued growth of cases primarily in the 20 to 40 area year group in areas in our county around the city, I feel it's necessary to strictly follow the CDC guidelines completely. If this resolution is passed, I will be establishing measures that will result in more effective use of masks to help deter the spread of COVID in our city. I, of course, will ask you for your approval. In preparing the proclamation, I want to take a minute to thank a number of folks that have helped me to make sure that we have a implementable as well as enforceable as to the most extent possible, proclamation or declaration once it is in fact authorized and signed. I want to thank Mr. Patuchik. We've had some very interesting discussions. We've agreed and disagreed on a number of things, and as always, his insight has been invaluable. I want to thank our Assistant City Manager Victoria for chiming in and adding her good common sense. I want to thank Adam Thrasher, our police chief, who has been our de facto incident commander and has been attending all the meetings with the health department when I couldn't be there to keep me informed, and he's done a great job of that. And he's been invaluable again on how enforcement should work. And of course, the city attorney, hiding back in the corner as usual, has been invaluable to make sure that we do this in a legal and proper manner, and that we avoid any impingement on rights or doing something that we're not authorized to do. So I appreciate that. And I'll just mention, we did have some input from, of course, fire chief as well. He's not here today, but I want to thank him. With that, council members, I'll turn it over for your discussion.
Yes, sir.
I appreciate you, Mr. Mayor, sitting down and talking to me earlier. And I think the last couple of days, I've shared the same questions my colleagues have shared. One, and I appreciate you asking us, it's a big ask to give away our elected voice of the people that want us to speak for them. But in times of emergency, I understand dire needs decisions now before we can all come together as a body. I do have concerns, I have issues, but like you, I've spoken to my cardiologist and my oncologist on how to keep myself safe and healthy, and how others can do that. I can't expect others to do that. I would hope they would. I sit up here as someone who doesn't think the government should interfere with my life and shouldn't tell me what to do and not to do. So just coming out and saying, yes, let's do this, no, don't do this, it's hard for me. And I know the decision weighs heavy on you from talking to you in the past and from knowing you. But I also know what it's like to lose a loved one. And I don't want anybody in the hospital by themselves. So I do have questions for Mr. Gomes, and I'll address those with him, and I'll talk to him afterwards. But we're in a different situation, I think, where I won't use the seatbelt argument. I'm not for or against anything we're saying yet. I'm giving you permission to make a decision. I hope you take things that we gave you, suggestions we gave you into mind when you make your decision, or you put out the policy that you want to put out, and keep all of them in mind. And going forward, we're not just giving you discretion on making an order for masks, and I don't want to make today about masks, because I don't think it is. Today's about our community and the state we're in right now, and whether it's a mask or whether it's shutting a business down, that's a hard decision that you stepped up to the plate to make, and I appreciate that. I just want to make sure you take what we say in the consideration, all of us, and listen to the people, and we have. I know y'all get the same 300-400 emails, messages a day. My phone didn't stop ringing this morning, and I want to say this is, for me, not close to being a partisan decision at all. I didn't weigh that I'm a Republican. I didn't weigh that some people are Democrats. I didn't weigh anything else except what I'm being told from the hospitals and from talking to other people. I just want to make sure, and I know you will, that you use discretion with our expectations given to us by the community, because it means a lot to me, and I'm sure it means a lot to my comrades, to my colleagues, that we were elected to make a choice and make a voice and speak for people, and I'm giving you that power, and I just want to make sure you use discretion, you talk to everyone you can to make the right decisions going forward, until at time we can take these away. And I'm gonna leave it at that for now, and let other people talk, but I do appreciate you stepping up to the plate. I appreciate you wanting to be the endpoint, so thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, Ms. Wolf.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just have a couple questions, and I think it's safe to assume that what we're doing this is about masks and whether they're gonna be mandatory or not. So I think that is a safe assumption. I guess one of my questions is, and I've seen this throughout Arizona, and what else is going on is that those that have mandated it, what exactly are you looking for? Because there seem to be different rules from community to community, and I want to make sure that it's something that people understand. I guess that's my first one, and then my second question regards enforcement, and I hope that what we would do with enforcement with the police would be education and not citation.
Okay, good questions. I was gonna wait and hand the draft out later, but you basically.
I'm sorry.
You basically hit all the numbers. Would you pass that to your counterparts? And we need to pass one to the clerk too, so she's got it for the record. It's a draft of the order. You guys.
I did not mean to preempt you, sir.
2, 3.
But apparently I'm good at that.
Shortly anyway, so 6 one, half dozen the other. Pass one to Chuck too. And I'll just read this so everybody knows.
Do you want the rest of us to make comments? I mean,
Well, yeah, can I ask her, can you wait till everybody else makes comments and I'll do it?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, but what your second question was?
Enforcement,
Okay. we'll
of
cover
whether
that.
it's
We'll cover that too.
education and not
Yes, ma'am.
citation.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I also kind of jumped to the assumption that this was going to primarily be about masks, although I know there are other things involved in emergencies, especially this emergency. My comment is simply the result of a couple of emails that I received. And first I want to say that the decision that's being made, part of the Arizona revised statute says protecting public health while respecting individual rights. And just hearing that, I can just feel the tension between the two. But as William alluded to, different things that we all may have tensions about, like stop signs and speed limits and seat belts and cigarettes where you can or cannot smoke them. It goes on and on, where we really have given our choice to the greater good of the public. So I think the decisions that have to be made today and into the future related to the pandemic are like that. We have to think of the greater good. We also hear over and over again about the pride that Sierra Vistans have in our city, and we all feel that our community is the greatest place in the world to live. Many of us do, maybe not all, but most do. We talk about how caring and giving Sierra Vistans are, and whether how caring and giving they are, whether it's in a crisis or just one person. We've seen, especially through social media, how one person can be having a problem and huge numbers of Sierra Vistans respond to that problem. Well, at this time, my request is pretty simple. I'm asking that each person in our community refrain from commenting to another person about whether or not they are wearing a mask. And I just raised this because I had a couple of emails from people who have medical reasons why they do not want to wear a mask. Legitimate medical reasons. Their issue is they don't want to have to explain to every person walking up and down the street or shopping in the store why they are not wearing a mask. So at this point, and I'll just leave it at that, but at this point, I just request that all people respect each other. Do what you think is the right thing to do according to how the mayor's proclamation reads, and leave other people to do what they need to do. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Treat people, something like treat people as you would like to be treated.
Something like that, yeah. Sounds like a
Makes
golden
sense.
rule there.
Makes sense to me.
And I will say, since you mentioned that, every single prophet that has come to this earth has had a variation of that very same comments. So keep that in mind and be a good neighbor. Thank you.
Ma'am,
Oh, okay.
did you have comments?
I always have comments. Thank you for calling this special meeting and for your careful consideration, and I know it wasn't an easy, I know none of these decisions are easy, and I don't envy you, and we're all in a very unenviable position, I feel. But we are in a very important position, and that takes sometimes a very courageous step to do what's best for our city. And I think it's said best in the resolution here that this is in the best interest of our citizens. It's not, like Councilmember Benning pointed out, it's not a partisan issue, it's a public health issue, and I think that's sometimes lost in all the static that we hear. But I thank you, Mr. Mayor, for all your careful consideration on this, and I do trust you moving forward once we conclude with this. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Can we'll ask Sarah first, we'll get the final word from the Mayor Pro Tem. Is that okay?
Absolutely.
That's okay, Sarah?
Sure. All right. So I had some of the same questions that Christine had about enforcement. I talked through many of those with Chuck a couple of days ago. So I'm grateful that will be like our next discussion, I suppose. I wanted to share, I shared this with you, Mayor, already, but I'll share with the rest of council. I wrote a really long rambling email in the middle of the night to the mayor.
Was it in the middle of the night?
I don't know.
I couldn't tell.
Oh, you can tell. Okay. But I'll just share my thoughts on this, that having worked in healthcare settings for the last, almost 5 years, I am not in favor of, knee-jerk or trending policy. I'm in favor of policy being guided by recent, relevant, and accurate data. And this isn't the time for, we've heard a lot of comments and such, and I spoke with a neighbor last night who I can't go running anymore because someone always stops me to talk. But talk to them, I said this is a time when this decision is not based on opinions, it's based on facts and figures and numbers and data, and guided by professionals who work in this field, and I'm grateful that we're having those discussions. And I know that Mayor shared that he's been in constant communication with the health department, the hospital, healthcare professionals. That's who we need to be listening to right now, and so that's really important. I will share that the research that I have seen, the studies I have seen, show that the use of face coverings reduces transmission of COVID-19 by at least 50%. There's a lot of information to back that up. And that when I'm in public, when I'm in a grocery store, I wear a mask because I'm a believer in studies produced by the healthcare community, partially because I work in that community and I know the background of how those are developed and how those conclusions are achieved. I also wear a mask because I don't know whether or not I've been exposed. You never know out in the community. I've never had someone contact, like a contact tracer, call me or anything saying, you have been, definitely, but you don't know, right, for sure. And it's clear that this disease can be spread by those who have no symptoms. And I wear a mask because although I have a household of healthy individuals, I want to be considerate of my friends and neighbors who are caring for an elderly parent or compromised individual. I also wear one because I want our community to thrive. I want our businesses to stay open, and I want employees to stay healthy. So wearing a mask while in a public indoor space is a small sacrifice to fight the spread of this disease in our community. And so I am grateful for the mayor taking steps to protect our community and to keep people safe, and until hopefully such time as our numbers start decreasing and not increasing exponentially like they have been.
Thank you, Ms. Pacheco. Madam Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm going to just, keep my comments to the actual executive, declaration.
You need to comment now, because once you give me the authority, I can do whatever the heck. I want.
Oh, okay, let's do that then.
No, I'm open for comment.
I'm just kidding. Yeah, I know that you're kidding. So I just wanna talk about us giving you the authority and my thoughts on that first, and then we can talk mask as we go through the declaration, as far as I'm concerned. But I just wanna say that while, our timing isn't always in sync as far as when you do act, I know that you act with every intention of what's best for this city. And I would just like to remind the public that I know I voted for you, and I know that the majority of Sierra Vista voted for you, and to me that says that we trust you. We trust you to do what's right for the city. We're well aware of how much you love this city. You didn't have to make this your home. You never even had to become mayor for 3 terms. Thank you very much that you did. But I trust that in giving you this, I know there's no doubt in my mind that you're going to do what you think is right, and listen to the council, listen to the public and what they think is right, weigh that in every decision that you make. So I wholeheartedly am in favor of giving you the authority to make these decisions. And I can go ahead and give you my thoughts on mask if you want, or we can wait.
Go ahead, you better do it.
Okay, I'll do it now.
To me later.
It's a lot of repeating of what other people have said. There's a lot of information out there, and can any of us be certain what we really have to do? We know, like you said, that until a vaccine comes out, there's no real way to get rid of this virus. We do know that. And I think you said it well when you said that in conjunction with staying home when necessary, washing our hands, staying a safe distance away when needed, along with wearing the mask. Those are all things that we know can help. They might not be the cure-all, but they can help. And I think it behooves us as a city to do what is required to help each other. We got an email from Pastor Mark Perry, which I believe is your pastor, and he said something that I thought encapsulated everything that I believe Sierra Vista is, and he said that we're not doing this for ourselves, we're doing it for each other, and to remember that in these times and all times that we are to love thy neighbor. And that is, I believe, what Sierra Vista is, and that's what they do. And I fully expect, I know we're gonna have some people that don't like it. I've got a 23-year-old in my house that doesn't like it, but he understands the importance, and he understands that he's not doing it for himself, but he's doing it for what he considers his really old parents. So, so I know that we're gonna have that, but I do believe that this is something that has to be done at this time, and so I don't have anything else to say. I think I'll just stop right there, as I do believe it's absolutely necessary. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Any other comments or questions? Gonna have a last word? Go ahead.
No, I apologize. I made my comments before I had your emergency declaration. I just have some clarifications or some things I'd like to get clarification. One of your exceptions is while using public sports or practice fields together.
That's primarily for the little league folks.
Which I understand, and parents, I'm sorry, I'm gonna
Now,
ask a question because I have to.
I will tell you that, once you give me the authority, I will issue a declaration. If there are things in here that we need to discuss, I have no problem with amending declarations.
Okay.
And I will share with you that what's on this document has been talked about, thought about with staff, with the subject matter experts, etc., to make sure that we're as accurate and clean as possible. Where people have needed exemptions, it was mentioned that the folks with medical conditions. That was one of the exemptions. There are a number of exemptions in there. We tried to catch them all.
Right.
We probably did not catch them all.
Okay.
Okay, so as things came up, if we need to say amendment 1 or amendment 2, whatever, to the declaration, I'm willing to do that as long as it's a well thought out amendment.
Okay.
We've also given time for the commercial establishments. Obviously, this is going out, if this goes out today, this is Friday afternoon, so how do I as a business owner fix everything before Saturday morning?
Oh, I agree.
So they have to have a time to fully comply with the order. So that's in here as well. So those kind of things, the exceptions, and hopefully we thought of all of them. We probably didn't get all of them, but we got most of them. So if there are things that need to be done once the order is issued, it needs to come back to my attention, and then we do an amendment. We do an amendment to the order.
Okay. That was my only question then, Mr. Mayor.
Anybody else?
Oh, no, this is not my question phase. This is my.
Oh, did you see your questions answered in the?
I did see my questions answered in there. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I guess, since I got called out, thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Gray. I just want to say, for me and for mine, yeah, I don't like the masks. I don't like it. I don't like government telling me what I have to do. But you know what? Sometimes that's the way it has to be. And I think we have a lot of people in our community that are fearful.
Yes, ma'am.
And they should be. And hopefully we can stop not only the disease, but some of the fear. That's all.
Good comment. Good comment. Anything else? Yes, ma'am.
Comment, also on, I mean, that's specifically for a face covering in public. I mean, for me, at least in the last 3 months, I haven't been in public that often. You know, 'cause we're primarily trying to stay home or social distance, and this is when you can't social distance, or when you're in around people who are closer than 6 feet to you. So not all the time, every day, all day. That's very different.
Well, you have to have a reason, if you don't have a reasonable requirement, people aren't gonna
Yeah.
obey or follow it. So that's part of the thinking behind the way the verbiage is. Okay. Any other questions on the authorization of the authority? Okay, so I'll call for the question. All those in favor? Opposed? It's unanimous. Thank you very much. With that, meeting is adjourned. And I will, what I'm gonna do here while we're still here, all present, and hopefully I'm not breaking any open meeting laws, Madam Clerk. I'm just gonna read the proposed, emergency declaration that has been proposed for my signature. Whereas the COVID-19 pandemic conditions throughout the state of Arizona have resulted in widespread illness, business and services closures, healthcare saturation, and many other conditions that pose significant threats to communities. Whereas the COVID-19, it should say and whereas, we missed one, attorney. And whereas the COVID-19 pandemic has resulted in a condition of peril to the health and safety of many of the citizens, as well as economic impacts on our business and tourism industry. And there we got that one. Whereas on June 17, 2020, Arizona Governor Doug Ducey issued Executive Order 2020-40 containing the spread of COVID-19, continuing Arizona's mitigation efforts. And whereas on June 26, 2020, the City of Sierra Vista issued Resolution 2020-40 authorizing the mayor of the City of Sierra Vista to declare a local emergency and recognizing the necessity of precautionary measures due to the threat of COVID-19, COVID-19 poses on public health and safety. Now therefore it is hereby declared that an emergency order now exists for the City of Sierra Vista, Arizona. It is hereby ordered, effective midnight tonight. Section 1, face coverings and use of shields in public. Paragraph A, wearing of a face covering or using shielding in public spaces. Every person over the age of 10 is required to make use of a face covering or shield in a public space when maintaining a 6-foot distance is not possible. Adults accompanying children shall use reasonable efforts to cause those children to wear face coverings when in public. Obviously, anybody who's been a parent knows why that language is there. B, commercial establishments. The wearing of face covering is required in all commercial establishments located within the city of Sierra Vista when physical distancing is impossible to continually maintain. Commercial establishments have until midnight 1 July 2020 to fully comply with this order. And then the reason they're given a little lead time there is, obviously, if they want to post signs, they want to do training, they want to do other things in their facility, they're not going to be able to do that between now and the first thing in the morning. Paragraph C, schools, institutions of higher learning, child care centers, not-for-profit organizations providing food and shelter, and houses of worship are requested to establish and publish their own guidelines for the proper wearing of masks in their spaces that are accessible to the public. Exceptions. Face coverings are not required, A, when a person is at home, when a person is alone in a vehicle or in a vehicle with people he lives with. C, when a person is at a commercial establishment for the purpose of eating, drinking, or sleeping. When a person is exercising outdoors alone or with people they live with, and while using public sports practice fields. 5 is while swimming, kind of makes sense. 6, in workplaces not open to the general public. So if you have one of the things I would think is if a lumber yard or some type of warehouse where people don't normally go in for public, that's an exemption. For any person who cannot wear a face mask because of medical condition, mental health condition, or developmental disability, or who is unable to remove the face covering without assistance. And 8, in an emergency situation where the wearing of face covering is not feasible. E, definitions. Public space. A, indoor spaces that are overseen by the city of Sierra Vista where the public is allowed to enter. B, outdoor spaces such as parks, playgrounds, parking lots, and other areas such as places where the public would gather while waiting to enter an establishment. C, in or on public transportation. 2, person means any person regardless of whether they are a resident, employee, customer, vendor, visitor, invitee, or other. C, face mask means a covering made of fabric or soft permeable material that covers the nose and mouth and surrounding areas of the lower face. And we got another one there, Mr. Attorney. Should say 4 instead of 3. Shield means an impermeable physical barrier designed to separate the individuals from physical contact. Section 2, enforcement. Any enforcement of this proclamation shall focus first on educating and working to promote best practices to accomplish the goal of mitigation. Before any action is taken to enforce this order under Arizona Revised Statute subsection 26-317, a class 1 misdemeanor, a person shall be notified of the violation and given the opportunity to comply. Duration, section 3. The order shall remain in effect until the earlier of the recession of the local emergency declaration by the mayor of the city of Sierra Vista, or the recession of the executive order 2020-40 by the governor of the state of Arizona. And then there's just the signature page in the authorization. So we got a couple of quick little typos before we can assign this. So I intend, with your authority that you just gave me, I intend to sign this tonight, so we can make it effective. Seeing nothing else before council, meeting's adjourned. I'm sorry.